Alright, good morning everyone. We are here with break 454. It is a 26 League Heroes retail combo break. The break includes a 26 League Heroes case as well as a 26 League Heroes starter case. The starter case has 40 starter packets in it. And we have the bonus 26 League Heroes hobby box as well as the 26 stickers, album and box combo. The bonuses get randomised at the end of the break as one lot between all 17 teams, with the winner getting them sent with their break cards. Our team list for this one: Broncos, Raele, Hastings; Raiders, Stephen Murray; Bulldogs, Flynn, Gilmour; Sharks, Dylan Smith; Dolphins, Thomas Maude; Titans, Lee Marschall; Manly, Johnny D; Storm, Peter Lowe; Knights, Dean Mich; Cowboys, Stephen Casey; Eels, Craig Milson; Panthers, Stephen Murray; Rabbitohs, Sam Driscoll; Dragons, Warren Stoddart; Roosters, Scott McBride; Warriors, Peter Lowe; and Tigers, Johnny D. Here we are. We have our bonuses here. We'll put them to the side for the end. So we've got our sticker box and our hobby box, as well as our album. Slide in. Bring up the chat for YouTube. There we are, and our team list. Beautiful. All right. I'm just looking at the YouTube stats. Saying we don't have the best streaming at the moment. I'll just pause it. Definitely want to do that. Not sure what's going on there. Let's get into it, and we'll keep an eye on it. Let's just close a couple of things down. Not sure. Have I got anything else running on here? Can close you. If you're in the chat, let me know how the stream's running on your end. There we go. It's saying it's picked up. That's what we're looking for, hoping for. And here they all are, guys. I'll get them all out. Makes it easier. You know, let's start getting them out as we pull them out. Yeah, double handle in it, as much. So we'll get all the starter packs open, and then we'll go through the bonus cards and get stuck into the packets. And then once we got through all that, then we'll get into the retail case. too many. That's alright. Get open. Don't forget to pop in the chat and say g'day. Just getting through these. Hey mate, welcome. Alright, get open. Yep. Plus, we got 120 to start off with out of the starter packs. So, 3.5 boxes worth of retail. So, all up, we've got just under or just over 15 retail boxes to open, plus the bonus packs. She's a big one today. We've got a few of these. We've got 2 of these listed at the moment with spots available. And we've got another 2 coming soon if your team's already gone. Halfway through them. Looks like streaming stats are holding steady now, which is a good thing. Let's start a new pile, I think. I know this is a bit time consuming, but we can get all these out, get rid of the box. It gives us a bit of room, and I can get the scissors part done in one hit. Get them out of the way. Only a few left to go and we can get stuck in. Get these ones out of our way, get that out of our way, and it opens us up quite a bit. Let's arrange this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 even. Doesn't help when I can't even count. That's bad. Alright, let's go. First lot. Start us off with Cookie for the Dragons. Harry Grant for Storm. Blake Raele for the Sharks. Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. And that's our first 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. I can count that time. So we only tried opening one of these packets. That was enough for us to learn that no, you won't find us opening things with scissors very often. Alright, RTS for the Warriors. Brighton Nickera for the Sharks. Will Penasini for the Eels. Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't like that I can see the card on that one. Luckily it's below the cut. Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Yellow bib. Terrell May for the Tigers. I just used one of those normal bins. They go alright. They get a bit full with all the starter packs, but the rest squashes down pretty easy. Mitchell Moses for the Eels. But yes, it's not a quick process. And you don't understand until you do it. Big Tino for the Titans. League heads, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Payne Haas for the Broncos. I've made a mistake. I'm going to have to fix this one. Dylan Edwards for the Panthers. Stephen Murray. Yeah. James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Hating on myself right now. Yeah, don't even. I'm really not happy at the moment. Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers. I will fix that. League heads, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. League heads, Bradman Best for the Knights. Ruben Garrick for Manly. League heads, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. League heads, Nico Hines for the Sharks. League heads, Jerome Hughes for the Storm. It's just me not being careful enough. League heads, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Murray Talagi for Cowboys. League heads, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Marky Mark for the Roosters. Dylan Walker for the Eels. Katoa for the Dolphins. Last one. Get rid of them. League heads, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Gilmour Shabarski for the Broncos. Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Come on. League heads, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. League heads, Nathan Cleary. There we go. That makes things a little bit better. I feel a bit better now that it wasn't the only card that they hit. And I do know if we don't have one, it might take me a minute, but we'll sort it out. Alright, let's go. 120 packs to start off. League heads, Mich Kenny for Panthers. Luminous Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous Damien Cook for the Dragons. Die Cuts, Tyson Frizzell for Knights. Luminous Dominic Young for the Knights. League heads, Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous Hamoli Olakau'atu for Manly. Game Breakers, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous Alefiana Campiera for Titans. League heads, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous Addo Carr for the Eels. Mercury Tamale for the Raiders. Number 213. Luminous Isaac Tago for Panthers. Game Breakers, Ben Trebojevic for Manly. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. League heads, Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Luminous Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Bang, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous Robert Toya for the Roosters. Bang, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. League heads, Alfiana Campiera for Titans. Luminous, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Give me 2 seconds. Die cuts, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. We don't have one in stock of the Dylan Edwards at the moment. Damn. I was hoping it was going to be easy. Gladiators, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos, number 462. Luminous, Dominic Young for the Knights. League heads, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous, Hamali Olika-Atu for Manly. Red Triumph, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Payne Haas for Broncos. Luminous, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. I'll ring Stephen after the break and we'll fix it up. Game breakers, Alex Seafarth for the Tigers. Luminous, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Mercury, Max Plath for the Dolphins, 437. Luminous, Falago for Storm. Game breakers, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Luminous, Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Joash for the Eels. Hugo Savala, Luminous for the Roosters. League heads, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous, Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Bang, Joash for the Eels. Luminous, Tommy Turbo for Manly. And Buzz, yesterday I was doing a retail case, thinking about that up above. Game breakers, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Completely random to come back to, but yeah. Yesterday we did a retail case with 5 starter packets and 2 hobby boxes. Game breakers, Liam Martin for the Panthers. Luminous, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. League heads Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Mawaki Fotowaka, red Triumph for Titans. Luminous Nafor White for Roosters. Die cuts Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. League heads Ben Hunt for Broncos. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Game breakers Tanila Paseka for Manly. Luminous Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Bang AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Red Triumph Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Game breakers Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous James Tedesco for the Roosters. Die cuts Jake Averillo for the Dolphins. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. League heads Jacob Little for the Dragons. Luminous RCG for Titans. League heads Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Red Triumph Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Dally M. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos. League heads Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous Payne Haas for the Broncos. Bang Renato Militalo for the Sharks. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Game breakers Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. League heads Spencer Lenu for Roosters. Luminous Keezy Apps for the Tigers. Red Triumph, Christian for the Dragons. I don't think we've seen a Welshie for a while. Cody Walker, Luminous for the Rabbitohs. Bang, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. League Heads, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous, Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Luminous, Luke Lawlilly for the Tigers. Game Breakers, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. League Heads, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Max Plath for Dolphins. Bang, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Luminous, Murray Talagi for Cowboys. League Heads, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous, Brian To'o for Panthers. League Heads, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous, Dylan Walker for the Eels. Die cut, Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous, Zahara Temera for the Raiders. Bang, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Die cut, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous, Dane Gagai for the Knights. Game Breakers, Alafiana Kampiera for Titans. Luminous, Connor Watson for the Roosters. League Heads, Apisai Coruscant for Tigers. Luminous, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Game Breakers, Mahalia Murphy for the Eels. Luminous, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Well, here's a bit of good news, guys. If you hadn't seen already, our weekly Pick the Score giveaway is now up to $150 gift card. So if we have a lucky winner for round 12, they will score the gift card. That giveaway is only in our Facebook group. And talking about the Facebook group, we are now over 2,700 members, which means another member milestone giveaway. So that'll be another $270 gift card for the website. And the weekly Pick the Score giveaway, the weekly tipping comp, top tipper, $50. So lots going on. Number 491, Mich Kenny for Panthers. Gladiator. Luminous Philip Semi for the Titans. Die cut Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Ray Stone for Dolphins. Bang Alifiana Khan Piera for Titans. Luminous Emma Veron for the Sharks. League heads Marky Mark for Roosters. Luminous Samula Fainu for Tigers. League heads Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. Bang Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous Blaze Talagi for Panthers. League heads Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous Tom Starling for the Raiders. Game Breakers Milwaukee Photo Ika for Titans. Luminous Jackson Purdue for Cowboys. League head Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous Angus Crichton for Roosters. League heads Moses Leota for Panthers. Luminous Jaden Campbell for Titans. Game Breakers Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Die cut Payne Haas for the Broncos. Luminous Brighton Nickera for the Sharks. Gladiators, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons, number 36. Luminous Alifiana Kampi Era for Titans. League Heads, Falago for Storm. Luminous Addo Carr for the Eels. Bang Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Luminous Isaac Tago for Panthers. Bang Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Samaima Torfa for Raiders. League Heads Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Game Breakers Ali Latua for the Warriors. Luminous Robert Toya for the Roosters. Bang Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous Milwaukee Fotowaka for the Titans. League Heads Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Excuse me. Luminous Ali Brigginshaw for the Broncos. So we've already done one of these breaks, and in our first one we hit a GT in the starter packs. I was very much hoping that we could replicate that. That would be a nice start to the break. Who do we have? Bradman Best in the die cut. Lindsay Collins, Luminous for Roosters. Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Casey McLean for Panthers. League Heads Lindsay Smith for the Panthers. Luminous Jerome Hughes for Storm. Game Breakers Olivia Koenig for the Roosters. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Bang Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. League Heads Milwaukee Fotowaka for the Titans. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks. League Heads Renato Militalo for the Sharks. Luminous William Kennedy for the Sharks. Game breakers, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Bang Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Luminous Tuikami Kamika for Storm. Game breakers, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous Sean Russell for the Eels. League heads, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. Red Triumph Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Luminous Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Luciano Le Lua for the Dragons. Luminous Payne Huss for the Broncos. League heads, Milwaukee Fotowaika for Titans. Luminous Sebastian Chris for Raiders. Bang Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Luminous Dylan Edwards for the Panthers. League heads, Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Game breakers, Ali Latua for the Warriors. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Mercury, Alex Twal for the Tigers. Number 118. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Die cuts, Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Reese Walsh for the Broncos. League heads, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Toltor Koala for Manly. League heads, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous Lyshan Albert Jones for the Warriors. League heads, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Connor Tracy, Luminous for the Bulldogs. Bang, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Tiana Penatani, grey for Sharks. Game breakers to Marle for the Raiders. We have an upside down Luminous for RTS. I was wrong. I would have swore he was a forward, but no, he's a winger at the moment. He has been a fullback. Game breakers, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous Beau Fermor for the Titans. Bang, Alefiana Khan Kiera for Titans. Luminous Jason Tormalolo for Cowboys. Die cut Beau Fermor for the Titans. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. League heads Greg Marzhew for the Knights. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. League heads Joash for the Eels. Luminous Stefano Utakamanu for Storm. Game breakers Dane Gagai for the Knights. Luminous Terrell May for the Tigers. League heads Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous Sam Verrills for Titans. Game breakers Stephen Crichton for Bulldogs. Luminous Bradman Best for Knights. Die cut Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Luminous Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Game breakers Big Tino for Titans. Luminous Tyrant Wishart for Storm. Red Triumph Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous Kira Dib for the Cowboys. League heads Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Alex Twal for Tigers. Game breakers Abby Church for the Eels. Luminous Billy Smith for the Roosters. Bang, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Luminous, Max King for the Bulldogs. Four packets left from the starter packs. Die cuts, Oregon Kofusi for Sharks. Luminous, Lachlan Ilias for Dragons. Bang, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Gladiators, Jason Saab for Manly, number 269. Luminous, Felice Kafusi for Dolphins. Alright, last pack for the starter case. League heads, Abasai Coruscant for the Tigers. And Luminous, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Well, that's all the starter packs done and dusted. Let's move these ones out of our way and get these case open and into that. Alright, box number 1. Gladiators, Tanila Paseka for Manly, number 280. Luminous, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous, Beau Fermor for Titans. League heads, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous, Bradman Best for the Knights. League heads, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous, Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Bang Casey McLean for Panthers. Luminous Alex Twal for Tigers. Game Breakers Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Tyron Wishart for the Storm. Game Breakers Loco Tonga. Hi Peter. Let's see if I can. I'm just up to fixing the windows so I can keep an eye on multiple things at once. At the moment, on my end, everything looks okay. Yeah, I'm not sure right this second. Junior Paulo for the Eels. The focus itself, is that overall or is that in a particular spot? That could be that I just haven't adjusted all that stuff since we've changed positions, and I may need to look into that. League heads, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Kira Dib for the Cowboys. And has that been the whole time, Peter, or has it only just started? Die cuts, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Bang, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous, Sam Verrills for the Titans. Game Breakers, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Luminous, Dylan Edwards for the Panthers. Bang, Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous, Payne Huss for the Broncos. Okay, at the moment. Was it only at the beginning when yeah. Gladiators, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Number 505. Felice Kafusi, Luminous for the Dolphins. League heads, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. League heads, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Red Triumph, Payne Haas for the Broncos. Luminous, Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. That's weird, the amount that have peeled underneath the barcode on these. Let's done it again. In that exact same spot. Game Breakers, Mahalia Murphy for the Eels. Start at the end of starter packs. Rightio. Luminous, Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Thank you. League heads, Falago for Storm. Luminous, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Exact same tip, like, yeah. It's unusual, like we don't normally get it out in these packets. It's Jacob Carraz, die cut for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Lachlan Elias for the Dragons. Exactly the same. League heads, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Just going to quickly take the jumper off now. It's been chilly up here of morning. I'd hate to feel like what it's like over there, Peter. I don't know if it's this box or what the go is, but that is ripping like that on the majority of the packets. Game Breakers, Alefiana Khan Piera for Titans. Luminous, Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. Maybe. Bang. Greg Marzhew for the Knights. Luminous, Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Greg Marzhew, Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Yeah, it's had a pretty stable black object here in front of it to focus on. Jesse Colquhoun for the Sharks. Look at that chubby going. Bang, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous, Billy Smith for the Roosters. League heads, Big Tino for the Titans. Luminous, Kurt Catewell for the Warriors. Die cuts, Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Tanila Paseka for Manly. Luminous Dream Buller for Tigers. League heads, Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Luminous Max King for the Bulldogs. Bang Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Xavier Coates for Storm. Yep, I don't doubt it. League heads, Gutho for Dragons. Luminous Herbie Farnworth for Dolphins. Dally M. Luminous Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Game breakers, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Lyshan Albert Jones, Luminous for the Warriors. Die cuts, Billy Smith for the Roosters. Luminous Reece Welsh for Broncos. League heads, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous Abby Church for the Eels. Red Triumph for the Warriors. Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. League heads, Samula Fainu for the Tigers. Tolto Koala, Luminous for Manly. Box number 2. Get these put away first. Red Triumph, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Keezy Apps for the Tigers. League heads, RCG for Titans. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Gladiators, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders, number 411. Alifiana Kamki era for Titans. Game Breakers, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Luminous Brighton Nickera for the Sharks. League Heads, Ethan Blumort for Manly. Luminous Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Game Breakers, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous Addo Carr for the Eels. Bang Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. League Heads, Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous Isaac Tago for Panthers. Die Cut Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Luminous Homoli Olika R2 for Manly. League Heads, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Dominic Young Bang for the Knights. Luminous Robert Toya for the Roosters. League Heads, Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Bang Philip Semi for the Titans. Luminous Mawaki Fotowaka for the Titans. I'm reading it. I could read it, but in my head it was still saying Alfiana Kamki error. That's what my brain wanted to say. Game Breakers, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ali Brigginshaw for Broncos. Die Cuts, Matty Lodge for Manly. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. League Heads, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Jerome Hughes for Storm. Die Cut Ali Latua for the Warriors. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. League heads, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Jaden Campbell for Titans. Luminous Casey McLean for Panthers. Bang Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. League heads, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. Game breakers, Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Red Triumph for the Storm. Luminous Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Luminous William Kennedy for the Sharks. Mercury Maratha Nakor for the Warriors, number 80. Luminous Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. League heads, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous Sean Russell for the Eels. Bang Reece Walsh for Broncos. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. League heads, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Damien Cook for the Dragons. Game breakers, Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. League heads, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Die cut, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous James Tedesco for the Roosters. Bang Tyron Wishart for the Storm. Luminous Adam Dewey for the Tigers. League heads, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous Max Plath for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. 2 packets left for our second box. Dally M Predictor. Let's fix these up. Otherwise we're going to run out of room. Luminous RCG for the Titans. Game breakers, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous Dominic Young for the Knights. Alright, box number 3. We've got no breaks on tomorrow as yet. Kurt Mann, die cuts for Bulldogs. Luminous Zach Labert for the Cowboys. I just shared my mishap. At least I got coffee. I traded my stuff up for a coffee. Luke Metcalf, league heads for Warriors. Luminous Loco Tonga for the Dragons. Bang RTS for Warriors. Luminous Luke Brooks for Manly. Game breakers, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. League heads, Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous Savage for the Raiders. Bang Dream Buller for Tigers. Luminous Georgia Hale for the Titans. Die cuts, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous Josh Kerr for the Dragons. League heads, Luciano Lewe for the Dragons. Yes. Ruben Garrick, Luminous for the Manly. For Manly. I was okay, to be honest, until I hit that Edwards card. Oh, game breakers, Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Luminous, Mich Kenny for the Panthers. At least I can say it is the first one I've done. And hopefully the only one. Bang, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous and Fanua Blake for the Sharks. League heads, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous and Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Mercury, Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Number 446. Luminous, Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Red Triumph, Jareem Bula for the Tigers. Luminous, Jalen DeGroot for Titans. Die cut, Connolly Lumi Lou for Dolphins. Luminous, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. I'd say you've gone through more packs already than you would in a full hobby case break. Yep, pretty much at this point. No, about half. As I said, it's about 3.5 boxes. Yeah, well, we don't. I don't touch normal packets with scissors. But yeah, as I said, it's about 3.5 packet boxes in a starter case. Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs, which is, I don't know, 6 or 7 in the hobby. Katoni Staggs for Broncos. Game breakers. What's going on? Something's. Game breakers. Ben Trebojevic for Manly. Luminous Asaya Papali'i for Panthers. League heads, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. League heads, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Game breakers, Alex Seyfarth for the Tigers. Luminous Alex Seyfarth for the Tigers. Die cut, Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. Luminous Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Connolly, Loomy, Lowe for the Dolphins. Luminous Ali, Lay, Tua for the Warriors. Game breakers, Olivia Koenig for the Roosters. Luminous, Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Bang, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous, Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. League heads, Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Red Triumph for Panthers. Luminous, Harry Grant for Storm. League heads, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous, Renato Mulatalo for Sharks. Game breakers, Sebastian Chris for Raiders. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Gladiators, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs, number 327. Luminous, Connolly, Loomy Lowe for the Dolphins. League heads, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous, Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks. Game breakers, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous, Tanila Paseka for Manly. League heads, Homoli Olika Atu for Manly. Luminous, Sam Walker for the Roosters. Game breakers, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Diecast, Taylor May for the Tigers. Luminous, Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous, Cameron Munster for Storm. League heads, Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Luminous, Brian Kelly for the Titans. And last packet for box number 3. Bang! Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Move them off to the side. Box number 4. Die cut Molly Olika R2 for Manly. Luminous Casey McLean for Panthers. League heads Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. Game breakers Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Luminous Damien Cook for Dragons. Bang Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous Adam Dewey for the Tigers. League heads Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Luminous Dominic Young for the Knights. Game breakers Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Gladiators Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels, number 389. Luminous Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Game breakers Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. League heads Alafiana Khan Piera for Titans. I wish we could say that we did it deliberately, but obviously we don't know that, so congratulations. Well done, lucky. Milwaukee photo walkout for the Titans. Did you get them together separately? Game breakers Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous Ali Briganshaw for the Broncos. Red Triumph, Asaya Iongi for the Eels. Luminous, Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. Bang, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. League Heads, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous, Jerome Hughes for Storm. League Heads, Renato Militalo for the Sharks. Luminous, Max Plath for the Dolphins. Hey, buddy. We were actually talking about you before I went live. Xavier Wilson Mercury for the Broncos. $3.59. So Dad mentioned that it's showing as your parcels in Melbourne now. Apparently that's not correct. That's just what happens when you lodge a query with them for that parcel now. William Kennedy, Luminous for the Sharks. Game Breakers, Shaylee Bent for the Titans. Luminous, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Dally M, Rookie of the Year. Luminous, RCG for Titans. Raiders fan with Panthers today. Just for the Cleary tax, bring the Dally M. I'm so sorry, Stephen. I'm not sure if you've seen. Bang, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. League Heads, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous, Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. League Heads, Cameron Murray. I need a Cleary Bang card if anyone has one spare. There you go, everyone. Warren Stoddart's looking for a Cleary Bang card. Tom Starling for the Raiders. Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos. Game Breakers, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Sean Russell for the Eels. That's not bad. League Heads Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Bang Zach Labour for the Cowboys. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Bang Falago for Storm. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. League Heads Jacob Little for the Dragons. Ben Trebojevic Luminous for Manly. Die cut Greg Marschall for the Knights. Luminous Sanua Taruva for Tigers. League Heads Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Will Panasini for the Eels. Red Triumph Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Jonah Pezzett for the Storm. Game Breakers Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. League Heads Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Bang Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Die cuts Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous Teddy for the Roosters. Alright, last packet for box number 4. League Heads Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Sarah Togatuki for Tigers. Alright. box number 5. Die cut Milwaukee photo wiker for the Titans. Luminous Nafor white for the Roosters. Game breakers KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Bang Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Origin League Heads Milwaukee photo wiker for Titans. Luminous Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Die cut Felice Kafusi for Dolphins. Luminous Xavier Willison for Broncos. League Heads Ben Hunt for Broncos. Luminous Tommy Turbo for Manly. Bang Jackson Purdue for Cowboys. Luminous Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers Lehe Hopper Wate for Manly. Luminous Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. League Heads Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous Roger Tuvasa Sheck for the Warriors. Red Triumph Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Tiana Penatani Grey for the Sharks. League Heads Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous Terrell May for the Tigers. Game breakers Tiana Penatani Grey for the Sharks. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. Bang Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Game breakers Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Philip Semi for the Titans. Gladiators, Tommy Turbo for Manly, number 158. I need to put the other one in. First one's dying. Luminous Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. League heads, Joash for the Eels. Luminous Dane Gagai for the Knights. League heads, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Jerome Hughes, bang for Storm. Luminous Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. Well, he's not in the Origins, so you never know how he might do through Origin period. He might jump up. Game breakers, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Oh, get on the pile. In the die cut. Luminous Moses Sulai for the Dragons. League heads, Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels. Bang, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. Game breakers, episode Coruscant for Tigers. Luminous Brian Tar for Panthers. League heads, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous Luke Lolelli for the Tigers. Mercury Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs, number 414. Murray Talagi Luminous for the Cowboys. Die cuts, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. League heads, Episode Coruscant for Tigers. Luminous Blake Raele for Sharks. Die cuts, Ethan Strange for Raiders. Luminous Falago for Storm. Red Triumph, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. Bang Ruben Garrick for Manly. Emma Veron for the Sharks. League heads, Lehe Hopper Wate for Manly. Luminous Samula Finu for Tigers. We've got 4 packets left for the box. Game Breakers, Tanila Tameka Upton. Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins. League heads, Greg Marschall for the Knights. Luminous Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Luminous Tui Kamika for Storm. League heads, William Kennedy for the Sharks. And Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons to finish off the box. Alright, I'm going to quickly duck up to the toilet, guys. I'll be just a moment. Box number 6. Let's bring that chat back up. Die cut Jeremy Marschall King for the Dolphin. Hey, buddy. Good. Lachlan Elias Illuminous for the Dragons. How about yourself? Game breakers, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Die cut Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. League heads Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Game breakers Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jaden Campbell for Titans. Bang Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous Billy Smith for the Roosters. League heads Tommy Turbo for Manly. No. The closest train station is Rabina. There is a bus that comes from there straight past, but yeah. I'm not sure how quick they come to get back. Sorry, Dad? Yeah, no, Alex Hopes is on the Gold Coast next Thursday. League heads Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Max King for the Bulldogs. Yes, where we are isn't the best place for public transport. Bang Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. Triumph Chant Nicole Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Ethan Bullymore for Manly. League heads Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous Jesse Colhoun for the Sharks. Game breakers, Keezy Apps for the Tigers. Luminous, Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. League heads, Dylan Walker for the Eels. Luminous, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. I don't know why I did that. I was thinking about something completely different. League head, game breakers, Tyron Wishart for the Storm. Get into it, Jared. Lyshan Albert Jones, Luminous for the Warriors. Bang, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. League heads, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous, Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Game breakers, Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Luminous, Xavier Coates for Storm. Die cuts, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. League heads, Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous, Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Game breakers, Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous, Abby Church for the Eels. Dally M. Luminous, Spencer Leno for the Roosters. League heads, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous, Reece Walsh for Broncos. League heads, Brighton Nickera for the Sharks. Isaiah Yo, Luminous for Panthers. Bang, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Dylan Brown for the Knights. Game breakers, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. League heads, Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Luminous, Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Gladiators, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons, number 108. Asaya Youngie, luminous for the Eels. And here it is. It's been a while since I've seen one. A Reece Welsh triumph. I love that picture. Tolutokawala, luminous for Manly. League heads, Whenua Pole for Tigers. Luminous Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Matt Burton, luminous for the Bulldogs. Bang, Renato Militalo for the Sharks. Luminous Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Bang, Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Dylan Edwards for the Panthers. League heads, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jerome Luai for the Tigers. 4 packets left in the box. Mercury Moses Sulai for the Dragons, number 449. Luminous Hudson Young for the Raiders. Game breakers, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Leka Helasima for the Warriors. League heads, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous Payne Haas for the Broncos. Die cuts, Peter for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Hammer for the Dolphins. Put these away. Next box. Where are you staying, Alex? You still with us? League head, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous Zach Lomax for the Eels. Bang, Philip Semi for the Titans. Luminous Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Game breakers, Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous, Fanua Pole for Tigers. League heads, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous, Billy Walters for the Broncos. Die cuts, Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. League heads, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous, Greg Marschall for the Knights. Red Triumph for the Titans. Luminous, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Die cut, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. League heads, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Game breakers, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Bang, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous, Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Gehemat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. League heads, Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Luminous, Trent LaRoe for Storm. Bang, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous, Jamal Fogarty for Manly. League heads, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous, Dylan Lucas for Knights. Die cuts, Trent LaRoe for Storm. Luminous, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Asaya Yongi for the Eels. Luminous Adam Reynolds for Broncos. League Heads Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous Hugo Savala for Roosters. Gladiators Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Number 215. Luminous AJ Brimson for the Titans. Bang Leka Halasima for the Warriors. Luminous Falago for Storm. Game Breakers Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers Nita Maynard for the Dragons. Luminous Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Red Triumph Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. League Heads Sam Verrills for the Titans. Luminous Emma Veron for the Sharks. Game Breakers Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Samola Fainu for the Tigers. Die cuts Marcelo Montoya for the Bulldogs. Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Mercury Sam Verrills for the Titans, number 129. Moses Leota Luminous for Panthers. League Heads Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers Jalen De Groot for Titans. Luminous Philip Semi for Titans. Bang Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous Patrick Carrion for the Broncos. Bang Lehe Hopper Wate for Manly. Luminous Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. League heads Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Luminous Dane Gagai for the Knights. Gold Triumph. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. League heads Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Mackenzie Wheel for Cowboys. Game Breakers Patricia Malepo for Warriors. Luminous Moses Sulai for the Dragons, and that finishes off the box. Bang Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous Luca Moretti for the Eels. Game Breakers Joash for Eels. Luminous James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. League heads James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Mercury Alex Seafarth for the Tigers, number 250. Luminous Val Holmes for the Dragons. League heads Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Luminous Big Tino for the Titans. Game Breakers Teddy for the Roosters. Luminous Kale Iro for Sharks. League heads Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Die cuts Jerome Luai for Tigers. Luminous Jason Saab for Manly. League heads Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Luminous Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Bang Connor Watson for the Roosters. Gilmour Shabarsky for the Broncos. Game breakers Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Triumph Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Red Triumph Teddy for the Roosters. Luminous Hammer for the Dolphins. Die cuts Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. League heads Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous Nico Hines for the Sharks. Game breakers Beau Fermor for the Titans. Luminous Lehe for Manly. Bang Brian To'a for Panthers. Luminous Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Gladiators Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs, number 318. Luminous Dean Mariner for the Broncos. League heads Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Die cut Jack Williams for the Eels. Luminous Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Game breakers Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Bang Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs of Alami Kikau. Luminous for the Bulldogs. League heads, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Luminous, Apsai Coruscant for Tigers. Die cuts, Lachlan Elias for Dragons. Luminous, Liam Martin for Panthers. League heads, Payne Haas for Broncos. Luminous, Scott Drinkwater for Cowboys. Game breakers, Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous, Isaiah Yeo for Panthers. League heads, Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous, Dylan Brown for the Knights. Bang, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Game breakers, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous, Ben Hunt for the Broncos. League heads, Mich Kenny for Panthers. Luminous, Asaya Yongi for the Eels. League heads, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Die cuts, Casey McLean for Panthers. Luminous, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Valami Kickow for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Bang RTS for Warriors. Luminous, Jerome Luai for Tigers. 2 packets left for the box. League heads, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Game breakers, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Luminous, Leka Halasima for the Warriors. Box number 9. Game breakers, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Gladiators, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Number 527. Luminous, Cassie Hiku for the Eels. League heads, Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Luminous, AJ Brimson for the Titans. League heads, Sam Walker for the Roosters. Luminous, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Bang, Gahamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Mawaki Fodawaika for Titans. Luminous, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Bang, Asaya Yongi for the Eels. Luminous, Marata Nakor for the Warriors. League heads, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous, Moses Leota for Panthers. Die cut, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Latu Finu for Tigers. League heads, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Die cuts, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Game breakers, Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Luminous, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. League heads, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Keanu Kinney for Titans. Bang, Apasai Coruscant for Tigers. Luminous, Kyle Flanagan for Dragons. Game breakers, Brian Totter for Panthers. Luminous Mackenzie Wheel for Cowboys. League heads, Jerome Lowe for the Tigers. Luminous Angelina for the Bulldogs. Red Triumph, Renato Militalo for the Sharks. Zach Lomax, Luminous for the Eels. Red Triumph for the Raiders. Luminous Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. League heads, Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Die-cut Asaya Papali'i for Panthers. Luminous Billy Walters for the Broncos. Bang Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Tarpanay for the Raiders. League heads, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Luminous Dylan Lucas for Knights. League heads, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Greg Marschall for the Knights. Game breakers, Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. League heads, Moses Leota for Panthers. Kulikefu for Dolphins. Bang Connor Watson for the Roosters. Lachlan Galvin, Luminous for the Bulldogs. Die cuts, Eliza Katoa for Storm. Luminous Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Game breakers, Lachlan Elias for Dragons. Luminous Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. Bang Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Fanua Pole, Luminous for Tigers. League Heads, Asaya Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous, Adam Reynolds for Broncos. League Heads, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Mercury, Dylan Walker for the Eels, number 347. Luminous, Trent LaRoe for Storm. We have an instant win for the table. Luminous, Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Game Breakers, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous, Jamal Fogarty for Manly. And last packet for the box. Game Breakers, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Once again, get this box tidied up. Box number 10. Game Breakers, Billy Smith for the Roosters. And Keon Kolomatangi, Luminous for the Rabbitohs. Die cuts, Jack Howarth for Storm. And Ali Latua for the Warriors. Lindsay Collins, League Heads for the Roosters. Luminous, Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Triumph for the Tigers. Luminous, Jessica Sturgis for the Roosters. Game breakers, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. League heads, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous, Harry Grant for Storm. Game breakers, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous, Renato Militalo for Sharks. League heads, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Bang, Murray Tulagi for Cowboys. Luminous, Zach Laver for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks. Gladiators, Moses Leota for Panthers, number 428. Luminous, Tanila Paseka for Manly. League heads, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous, Sam Walker for the Roosters. Kuli Kefu in the base. Alright, Brendan Pakura, die cut for Broncos. Luminous, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Olivia Higgins for the Knights. Luminous, Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Bang, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Cameron Munster, Luminous for Storm. League heads, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Brian Kelly for Titans. Die cut, Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. League heads, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Bang, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous Tony Staggs for the Broncos. Bang, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous Blaze Talagi for Panthers. League Heads, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous Tom Starling for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos. League Heads, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Game Breakers, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Mitchell Barnett, Luminous for the Warriors. Die cut, Jojo Fafita for the Titans. Ben Javovic, die cut for Manly. League Heads, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Luminous Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Mercury Jamin Salmon for 34. Luminous Will Panasini for the Eels. Fisher. Game Breakers, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Jonah Pezzett, Luminous for Storm. Bradman Best, League Heads for the Knights. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for Raiders. Bang Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Bang Luminous Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. League heads, Jareem Buller for Tigers. Luminous Saratoga Tukey for the Tigers. Die cuts, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Connolly Lumi for Dolphins. Red Triumph, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Sai Papali'i for Panthers. League heads, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Bang, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Alex Seyfarth for the Tigers. League head, game breakers, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Luciano Leilua Luminous for Dragons to finish off the box. League heads, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Bang, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. Gladiators Apasai Coruscant for Tigers, number 588. Luminous Bo Fermor for the Titans. Did everyone see his sticker video? Him and the kids doing a sticker album and box. League heads, Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Billy Walters for the Broncos. Oh, Alex Twell, Luminous for Tigers. Bang, Reece Walsh for Broncos. Luminous Tyrant Wisher for Storm. League Heads, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous Kira Dib for the Cowboys. Red Triumph, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Braden Trindle for the Sharks. League Heads, Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous Sam Verrills for Titans. Game Breakers, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Bradman Best for the Knights. League Heads, Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. Luminous Junior Paulo for the Eels. Die cuts, Tanila Paseka for Manly. Luminous Felice Kafusi for Dolphins. League Heads, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ethan Strange for Raiders. Game Breakers, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Mercury, Dane Gagai for the Knights, 007. Bond in the house. And the 4 white, Luminous for Roosters. League Heads, Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Game Breakers, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Die cuts, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. Bang, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. League Heads, Zio for Panthers. Luminous Xavier Willison for Broncos. Die cut Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Luminous Tommy Turbo for Manly. Game Breakers Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Bang Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Connor Tracy for Bulldogs. League Heads Jack Williams for the Eels. Luminous Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for Warriors. Red Triumph for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tiana Penatani Grey for Sharks. Die cut Renato Mulatalo for Sharks. Luminous Terrell May for Tigers. Game Breakers Sophie Holloman for the Raiders. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. Game Breakers Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous Cody Dylan Walker for the Eels. League Heads Alex Twile for Tigers. Luminous Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. Game Breakers Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Brian Top for Panthers. Bang KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous Luke Lloyd-Lilly for Tigers. League Heads Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Die cut David Clemmer for the Dragons. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Game Breakers Max Plath for the Dolphins. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Bang Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous Tui Kamikamika for Storm. League Heads Hudson Young for the Raiders and Jake Trebojevic for Manly to finish off the box. Only one more box to go. last box for the break. Game breakers, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Luminous, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Red Triumph, Hamoli Olika Atu for Manly. Luminous, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. It's a really weird scratch mark. It's like wheels or something got stuck in the one spot on it. Luckily it's on the protective coating, so it doesn't really matter. The card is safe and whatnot. League heads, Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Don't seem to notice any other marks on any of the other cards, so I'm wondering if it's the plastic film on these cards they haven't allowed for in the machine. Valami kick out for the Bulldogs, if that makes sense to everyone. Because the card itself looks pretty standard thickness. So I wonder if they've just ran it through like a normal thickness, forgetting about the plastic. Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Cohen Hess, Luminous for Cowboys. Die cut, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous, Apisai Coruscant for the Tigers. League heads, Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Luminous, Liam Martin for Panthers. Bang, Xavier Savage for Raiders. Luminous, Keezy Apps for Tigers. League heads, KO Weeks for Raiders. Luminous, Nico Hines for Sharks. Game breakers, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Die cut, Tamale for the Raiders. Luminous, Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. League heads, Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Game breakers, Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Red Triumph for the Roosters. Luminous Lehe Hopawate for Manly. League Heads, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Isaac Tago for Panthers. Bang, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Alafiana Kampi Era for Titans. Bang, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Luca Moretti for the Eels. League Heads, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. League Heads, Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Hammer for the Dolphins. Yasmin Clydesdale, Luminous for the Knights. Game Breakers, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Die Cuts, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Val Holmes for the Dragons. League Heads, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous Big Tino for Titans. Game Breakers, Molly Olika R2 for Manly. Luminous Kale Arrow for the Sharks. Bang, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Gladiators, Kalen Ponga for the Knights, number 509. Luminous Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. League Heads, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous Dean Mariner for the Broncos. League heads, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous, Jason Saab for Manly. Game breakers, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Luminous, Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Bang Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. League heads, Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Bang Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Die cuts, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Bree Chester for the Cowboys. Luminous Addo Carr for the Eels. League heads, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Robert Toya for the Roosters. Alright, lucky last pack for the break. And we got a Mercury Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Number 99. Luminous Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. And that finishes off our packs. All we have left to do is to go through these hits in front of us and randomize the bonuses. Here we go with number 1. Dally M Predictor, number 10. Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Didn't quite make it through with our last packet of sleeves. Number 10. Next up, Dally M Predictor, 126. Tamale for the Raiders. And continuing on, number 79. Wild card for the Knights. And Dally M Rookie Predictor number 160 for the Storm. Number 113 for our Origin Predictor. Cowboys, Jeremiah Nanai. Dally M Predictor number 6. Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Alright, our Golden Triumph in the team, number 35 for Storm. Alright, lucky last hit for the break. Instant win for the Eels. Craig Milson with the Eels today. Alright, now to finish us all off, let's get our bonuses front and center before we change screens. And here we are. We have our album, our sticker album with, I think it's 5 packs. I thought it was 4 originally. No, it's 5 packets. Our sticker box and our hobby box. So they will get randomized as one lot and sent out with the winner's break cards. It's actually got 2 security seals on the sticker box. A little green select sticker and then the NRL hologram sticker. Anyway, we're not here to look at what's on them. We're here to randomize them and find out who is getting them. Alright, team list into the randomizer. Let's change screens. There we are. Everyone is loaded in and ready to go. 3 times around the merry-go-round will determine our lucky winner. Number 1, number 2, and lucky number 3. Before I hit that, I did notice that Flynn Gilmour ended up in spot 1 for both of them. Lee Marschall with the Titans. Congratulations, mate. Thank you to everyone for being a part of it. And don't forget to check out the available teams on the website. Until the next one, guys, that is it. That is all. Hope you had